Good morning again. Last Sunday, we began our summer sermon series by studying the book of Proverbs together. That's what we're doing for the summer, and we're calling it Life Hacks because the book of Proverbs in the Bible is kind of like a how to do life right book. It's like a manual from God for life, and it was written 3,000 years ago. But if you read it, and we're encouraging you to read it this summer, you'll see that the issues that people dealt with 3,000 years ago, your average person, are the same exact issues that you and I still deal with today. Now, if you missed last Sunday, you can catch up online. There's even a giant prize for anyone who either comes to every sermon this summer or listens online. There's a prize at the end of the summer. Listen, watch the video from last week. You'll see what it is and how to do it. But today we continue chapters 3 and 4. And it's going to be sweet because these two chapters 3 and 4 in the book of Proverbs, are all about how to apply God's wisdom to your life in your day-to-day experiences in some very, very key areas. They're really about having a happy life, a satisfying life, or a God-blessed life. That's what these two chapters are about. Now imagine that. Wouldn't that be great, right? Like if you could go to bed every night knowing, wow, I've had a God-blessed life today. If you could wake up every morning thinking, I've had a God-blessed life. Today's going to be amazing. I'm satisfied with life. It's hard to be satisfied. So God teaches us in Scripture how we can feel more happiness or more satisfaction in life. Imagine waking up to that every day. That should be the goal. Now, if I were to ask you what you want in life, you'd probably say that. What do you want out of life? What do you want more of? You might say a short sermon, right? That might be it, but we don't do that here. Don't get your hopes up. But other than a short sermon, you might say, I want more happiness or I want more satisfaction in my life. 3,000 years ago, they said the same thing. I want more happiness or satisfaction. 200 years ago, we said the same thing as a nation, right? Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence, and he wrote that we're all supposed to be able to pursue life and liberty and happiness, right? Right from the beginning of our nation, we said we want to be a place where we can pursue satisfaction or happiness. When I was a kid, Snoopy was a big deal. There was always Snoopy posters, and they would say, happiness is. We have one for you today. This is for Jack. That's happiness for Jack. Their happiness is golfing in Nevada. But there's a lot of things that make us happy, right? There are lots of little things. It's summer, so I was thinking about mine, like what makes me happy in summer. And for me, happiness is peach pie. Happiness is steak on the grill. Happiness is an ocean view. I love that. Happiness is catching a fish. That's an amazing thing for me. Happiness, this will sound a little maybe not manly, but happiness is the smell of lilacs. I don't know what it is about lilacs, but it's my favorite smell on earth. So I just love it, and I smell them, and it's like the whole world is good for a moment when I smell lilacs. Those are the little things. I know we all have a whole bunch of little things that make us happy, but then there's also the big things. There's big things in life, and we could probably make a list here too of the big things that make us happy. But generally, if you look at surveys and stuff, if you ask people, like, what would make you more happy? Not just happy, right? Because what would make you happy, like the number one thing is, well, maybe like good health. Not happy, but what would make you more happy? Like if you could have more of it, your life would be happier. And if you look at surveys, people will say the things that make them more happy would be like respect or approval, something like that, or fame, popularity, something like that, or maybe power in life, or like promotion at work, more power. Maybe money or an item would make you more happy. Or potentially like a relationship improvement or love in your life, that could make you more happy. That's what surveys show. So we're going to do a survey here today. We did one last week. If you weren't here, I'll explain it for you. If you take out your phone, everything's on your phone now. All the verses, the bulletin, announcements, all that stuff's on your phone. So if you want to take out your phone and you go to your settings, you can go to your Wi-Fi setting and choose the high school Wi-Fi. It's a public Wi-Fi. You can get on that. Once you're on that, then you go to rccsunday.com. If you've been there before, it'll pop up real easily. But rccsunday.com, and once you go now you're there, boom, and you can see the bulletin. That's a little too fast. You could see the bulletin if you wanted, or there's that orange button that says survey. I think it was orange. Yeah, there it is. And you could click on that, and then the survey will come up. Boom. And then there are the selections I just gave you. So be honest, no one knows what you're voting for, but if you could be a little bit more happy this week, which of these things would you choose? More relationships, more money, more power, more fame, more respect. What would you, if you could choose anything this week, what would you choose to make you a little bit more happy? These are the things that normally people say if you research it. And here we are showing up, well, not a lot of fame, not looking for that, or power. You guys don't want that. More love. Well, isn't this just a nice church service, huh? Wow. All right. Bunch of warm and fuzzies out there. Maybe you ought to hug Jack afterwards. So we got a lot of love. We got some money. We got some respect. And no one would be a little happier if you had a promotion or some more power in life, huh? Okay. All right. We don't have any Kardashians here, I guess, for the fame. Those are the things, right? Those are just the things that come up in people's lives we wish we had more of. And you know what? If you're in church for the first time here at RCC, you might be thinking, he's about to slam this because it's church, but I'm not. That's not how we roll around here. I'm not going to slam these things at all. What I want to say is God knows us, and God knows we have these feelings, that we'd like to get a new car once in a while, or we'd like to have an improved relationship. God knows these things. He talks about them all very directly in the book of Proverbs. We don't have to hide from it. As our Father, that's how God sees himself. He cares for us. So he cares about our desires. He cares about our wants. And he basically says, if you want to improve in these areas in your life, I have a guide for you as your Father. I know you want this stuff, so here's the guide. I'll help you. That's what he says. But God also says you get to make a choice. Like, he doesn't force his will on you. You don't have to do things God's way in life. He allows you the freedom to choose. He doesn't force us to follow his directions. He says, here they are. If you want to be wise, you should probably listen, but it's up to you. When it comes to relationships, you could listen to God, or I guess maybe Dr. Phil would be out there. You could listen to him. When it comes to resources or our money, God says you could listen to me, or whatever the latest ad you see on TV is, you could listen to that. When it comes to having more respect or fame in your life, God says you could listen to me, or I guess, watch the Kardashians. They're famous. But call me crazy, for me, for all three of these key areas, I'm banking on God. Now, I know you think, okay, yeah, he's a pastor and there's a podium and a stage and the whole deal, and that's what he's paid to do today, but that's not me. I just say what I'm really thinking all the time. So I'm not coming out here and saying that because it's my job. I'm coming out here and saying that because that's my life. In my life, in my experience, I feel life goes better when I'm following God's directions. I don't always follow God's directions. Sometimes I screw up royally. But I can look back and see in choices in my life where I followed God's directions, they've just turned out better. My life has gone better because God blesses what God approves. That's a very simple concept. God blesses what God approves. As your loving Father, he blesses you when he approves of what you're doing. But loving parents don't help you to do the wrong thing. So as I listen to God and I want my life to get better, I want that for you too. There's nothing special about me. I want it in all of our lives. So Proverbs is like this guidebook from God so that we can have more happiness or satisfaction in our lives. And as we crack into it today, we start with chapter 3. We start right in the very beginning of chapter 3. Verse 1, it says, "My child, never forget the things I've taught you. Store my commands in your heart, for they will give you a long and satisfying life." Just like chapters 1 and 2, God starts out and he says, listen or pay attention. Here he says, never forget. That's how he starts out. Never forget. It's like your father saying to you, never forget. So important. And then he concludes with, it's a satisfying life. Never forget. I have this guide for you for a satisfying life. Isn't that what you want? How can we have this happy, satisfying, successful life in these key areas? Whether it's respect or resources or relationships, how can we have God's blessing, God's satisfaction? Well, we have to look at what God advises. So if we start with the relationships, what does God say? It's in Proverbs. Here, listen to this. Proverbs chapter 3, verse 3. "Never let loyalty and kindness get away from you. Wear them like a necklace. Write them deep within your heart. Then you will find favor with both God and people, and you will gain a good reputation." So finding favor or having a good reputation, that's relationships. Finding favor is like people liking you and respecting you. That's relationships, a good reputation. Whether it's a spouse or a boyfriend or a girlfriend or family relationships or friendships, work relationships. It works for all of them. Then, God says, then. Can we find better relationships with people? God says yes. Is that form of happiness possible for us? God says yes. Maybe you've struggled in that area. Maybe you'd like to improve in that area. God has a plan. Because relationships can be tough. They can just be tough. We all know this. God's known it for a couple thousand years. So how then? What does God say? God, having seen our relationships for thousands of years, what does God say? Thousands of years of wisdom from God. What does he say? God says, be loyal. God says, be kind. God says, be loyal and be kind. Then, this is cool, then, so if you're loyal and kind, then you'll find favor with God and with people too. That's a tremendous verse. It's a promise. God cares about our happiness and our relationships. He cares. And he tells us how to go about attaining that in very simple terms. He says, if you want that, then be loyal, then be kind. You have control over your choices. You can do this. God doesn't control you. You're not his puppet. You can control your actions. You can choose or choose not to follow God's directions here. Totally up to you. And only between you and God. You can choose to be loyal and kind. And God promises that if you do, you'll find favor. It's warm and fuzzy. That's nice. You all were warm and fuzzy. But what about the other one? What about resources or finances or the money one? That's not so warm and fuzzy. Does God care about that? What does God think about that? I mean, money's sort of a dirty word at church. We know that. It shouldn't be, though. Right? Like you should be able to talk about anything with your church family. That should be the one place you can talk about anything. It shouldn't be a big deal. There should be no judgment. People should just care for you and respect you no matter what your opinions are about anything. We should care for each other. So whatever topic, I'd love to be free to talk about here. Certainly people talk about money everywhere else. I got to tell you this. This is side note. This is crazy. Last summer, Janet and I, we went to Florida for like a little couples getaway. And like the 1st of August, last summer. And like the whole plan for us is kind of like I love the beach. So we take a walk on the beach during the day and maybe sit under an umbrella and read a book on the beach or have a pizza on the beach. That's kind of what we do. Maybe go out for dinner at night or something and listen to some music after that. That's kind of how the days go. So that's how the average day went for us. It was just a normal day. We did all that. And we're out listening to some music and it's getting pretty late at night and we're having a nice time. And as we're standing there listening to the music, this other couple happened to be standing like right next to us. And so they're like super outgoing. So they're like talking to us like crazy and starting this whole conversation. They're both really, really outgoing. And we're having a nice time laughing, enjoying the music together. It was great. And then at one point in the conversation, the dude was like, hey, you guys should come over. We got this really nice house. It's right on the ocean. And he described it, right? And it sounded like a mansion. And it's a really nice house. And we got a pool and jacuzzi. It's all right on the ocean. You ought to come over after this. It'd be really fun. And we just met him. You know, it's late at night, and they were maybe a tiny bit tipsy, and like I don't know if they even mean it or not. You know, it was like one of those things where you're like trying to figure it out, and they're talking about it. It sounds like it could be really fun, but then you're like, oh, I don't know really what it is. I don't know. So this is going on. Like a couple of songs come and go, and they keep kind of bringing it back up, and I think he could sense like my hesitancy, right? So he kept kind of ramping it up and talking about like, oh, the house has this and the house has that, and maybe we could show you the yacht. You know, the yacht has this and the yacht has that. And I'm like, yacht? This is maybe. And he's trying to convince me, and you can still tell that, I mean, I'm not saying yes, right? So I'm like, oh, I don't know, I'll think about it, and, let's listen to the song or whatever. And so then he finally goes, I'm just so happy today. It's been the greatest day for us. We made a killing in the stock market today, and I just want to celebrate. This has been great. And I'm like, oh, okay. And like, maybe that was going to impress me, but it started to sound kind of braggy, and I was starting to back off, and I didn't know what to do. And so his final plea was this. He's like, all right, I tell you what, I'm going to give you a stock tip. Now, he's already talked about his mansion and his yacht and all of this stuff. So, I mean, maybe this guy knows stuff, right? So he gives me the stock tip. He says, tell you what, I'm going to give you a little secret. On October 27th, buy this certain stock. I was like, okay, yeah, whatever. And we decide we don't go over to their house that night. We just go back to the hotel. And I'm thinking about it, though, the next day. I'm like, man, the dude had a mansion and a yacht and all this stuff. Wow, but I'm super conservative. So there's just, in the end, no way that I'm going to take my hard-earned money and invest it like from some guy at a bar late at night, right? He might have been making up the whole thing. I don't know. So I don't, but I remember the stock. So 3 weeks later, August 27th comes, and I remember, I'm supposed to buy the stock today. So I look at what that stock costs, right? You can go online and see what the stock was selling for. I don't buy it. The next day, boom, stock skyrocketed. And I was like, oh, should have gone to his house. Oh. And I like August 28th last summer, I don't remember what day I just like walking around all day in a haze, like, oh, I blew it. But here's the thing though, with like an investment like that, like buying is one thing, you got to know when to buy, and you also got to know when to sell. Right. He didn't tell me that. So I would have bought it, and I thought, oh man, if I would have bought it, this is what would have happened. But then he had no idea when to sell. So every once in a while throughout the last year, I've looked at that stock, and it skyrocketed, and then it came back down to below where it was, and then it skyrocketed even higher. And now, right now, it's lower than it would have been when I bought it. So if I'd have bought that stock and held on to it for these last 10 months, I'd actually have lost money because I wouldn't have known when to sell. It's hard to know who to trust with money stuff. Right? I mean, there's smart people out there. You go to a financial advisor, and they're, they have a plan, and they put it all on paper for you. You have friends who say things. You have parents. It's hard to know. It's always a risk. Whatever you do with your money is always a risk. Even if you have a really good person advising you, it's always a risk. So why not start with God? Like, start with God. Not that you don't listen to other smart advisors, but you got to start with God. If God is the creator of the universe, knows all things, why wouldn't you start with God when it comes to your money stuff? So what does God say about resources? Here it is in Proverbs chapter 3, verse 9. Honor the Lord with your wealth and with the best part of everything your land produces. Then he will fill your barns. See the word again, then? There's always these thens. Honor the Lord, then he will fill your barns with grain, and your vats will overflow with the finest wine. Then. Back then, grain and wine were wealth. If you had a lot of grain, if you had a lot of wine, it meant you're wealthy. That's like money now, right? Now it's just money, or maybe yachts or something, I don't know. That's what the deal is in 2019. So for your money, for your wealth to be overflowing, how much would that need to be for you? How much would it need to be? Like, all of us are in the top 1% of the people in the world right now. I know it might not seem like it, but in America, but we're all way up there. So how much is overflowing for you? Most everyone else in the world will look at you and say it is overflowing. You and I we don't think so. So what? Maybe if you won the lottery, maybe, right? That'd be amazing. Win a couple $100 million or whatever it is. Maybe then you could have the house on the beach or the sports car or whatever. Are those bad? Is that bad? Is that bad to want that? Is it wrong to think a house on the beach would be cool or a sports car? Is that bad? If you had it, would you be more happy? Nice clothes and cars. You're not evil if you want some fun stuff. That's just fun stuff. Little kids want a new truck or, whatever, a new toy. Old kids, our toys are more expensive. But it's just fun stuff. It's not bad to want some fun stuff. We all have needs, and of course we all have wants. That's okay. But to find financial satisfaction, financial happiness, it doesn't matter how much money you or I have at this moment. A lot of times people say, you got to have money to make money. Not with God. It doesn't matter how much money you have at the moment. The real question right now for you is, how do you invest wisely what you do have? Right? You have whatever you have. How do you invest that wisely? God knows that, so he gives us this instruction. Look at what he says in the verse. He says, honor the Lord. You start with your financial situation by honoring the Lord. And I don't know what that looks like for you in 2019. It was back then, maybe it meant you gave some grain or some wine away. I don't know. Now, I don't know. We're all different. We all have different lives. What does honoring the Lord with your finances look like to you? That's between you and God. And then the choice, will you do it or not? That's between you and God. Like, if you sit down and pray about it, and then you decide with God whatever the deal is, then you got to choose, am I going to do the deal or not? But what does honoring the Lord look like in your financial life? We all have that decision to make, and God says, then we will find satisfaction if we honor him first. So it's a key verse from God. Whatever our situation is, God's financial promise to us is, if he is our priority, then we can expect his help. It's not like, here's I think what we do too much. It's not like we can find some magic lamp somewhere and rub it and then wish for God's help. You are definitely not the genie I dreamt of.
And you're not Billy Graham.
True. I'm not Billy Graham, I know that. But man, you're here, so I'm confused. Like, what do people usually wish for?
Shorter sermons.
I already told them that's not happening today. But could I get a wish? Is it possible? Can I get a wish today?
Well, I don't do hair restoration either.
Ooh. You're definitely not the genie that I wish for, but what is it really? Like, when it really comes down to it, what is it that people really wish for?
Well, relationships.
Relationships. Well, I'm solid there. 25 years, man. I'm good.
Hoochie mama.
She waved this high so y'all wouldn't see her. Okay, so relationships. I'm good there. What else do people wish for?
Well, resources and money.
A new bass boat? Is that a possibility?
It's possible.
Possible. Okay, well, that might be a nice new bass boat. Anything else? Like, is there anything else that people usually wish for?
Respect.
Respect. So, that'd be great. Do I get that from you? Is that do I rub that? How do I get the respect?
Well, you can try, or you can ask God.
Can ask God. Well, I guess I'm going God all day, man.
Great choice. I'm out of here. I got to go see the kids.
See you, Jeannie. If you didn't see the email that came out, we're gonna have movie characters showing up throughout the summer, so that could be fun. Jeannie is now going to the children's ministry to have some fun with their kids. You could try, right? A lot of dumb ways to try to get advice in life, or you could go to God. I mentioned respect. Here's what God says about respect. Proverbs 3. My child, don't lose sight of good planning and insight. Hang on to them, for they fill you with life and bring you honor and respect. The Bible says if we want respect, we need good insight. Good insight is seeing things God's way. God has perfect insight. So the more and more in life we see things the way God sees them, that's us having good insight because we're seeing like God sees. And it's tough. It's tough to see like God sees, so we have to ask God. God, help me see this area of my life, whatever area it is, the way you see it. We don't have to figure this stuff out on our own. God says in Proverbs 3, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. Seek his will in all you do, and he will direct your paths. It's the first verse I ever memorized as a Christian person. That verse has been with me for 20-some years. It's an amazing Bible verse. So often we want to depend on our own understanding, but depending on God is better. You know, he says in that verse that God will direct your paths. Did you know you even had a path? Do you have a path? God knows you have a path. You need to know you have a path. And if you want to be successful, if you want to be happy, you can certainly get on track to that path. You can be, but it starts with God. That's the start of the path, following God's wisdom first. You don't got to figure out your own path. God lays it out. We'll finish up by looking at the very beginning of chapter 4. This is how it begins. Is God reminding us again. He says, listen, friends, to some fatherly advice. Sit up and take notice. And then there's my favorite Bible word, so. So God says, listen, so you'll know how to live. God, the creator of the universe, says to you, listen to me so you will know how to live. Wouldn't it be great to have the creator of the universe showing you how to live? He's willing to. He says, I'm giving you good counsel. Don't let it go in one ear and out the other. So straightforward. I love that. Eleanor Roosevelt once said, happiness is not a goal, it's a byproduct. Happiness is not a goal, Happiness is a byproduct. That's what she said, and that's great. So if happiness, that idea, happiness, if that's been your goal, you need to get a new goal. It's not a proper goal. Instead, set a new goal. Set a goal in your life to follow God's leadership. In whatever area of your life you're thinking of. We talked about the big three today, but it could be all of them. Set a goal to follow God's leadership, because then he says you will find happiness. Whether it's relationships or resources or respect, any of them. The more happy life that you dream of in any of those areas, God has laid out the plan for you. It's right here. It's just solid teaching straight from God. All I did was read you Bible verses. Happiness in those areas of your life, in all areas of your life, that's simply a byproduct of doing life God's way. That's what God promises. That's why we're studying Proverbs this summer. I want you to study it with me. All right, come on Sundays, come. If you're off on vacation, having a great time, listen online. Listen when you get back. Got that giant prize if you do. But the real prize is going to be knowing how God directs your life. There's no way that if you study Proverbs all summer, you don't have a more God-blessed life come September. Wouldn't that be great? Like, I'm already, I don't want summer to end, right? But it's going to end. Winter's coming. I know. So, when fall and winter get here, wouldn't you love to know you're living a more God-blessed life? Wouldn't you love to depend on God's promises? Well, all you have to do is try to obey, and he promises to help you. So that's what I'm going to pray about as I close. It's hard to obey. It's hard to always put God's will first. It's hard. Even when you're a pastor, it's hard. So I'm going to pray that I and anyone praying with me together, we're going to pray together that we try to put God's will first in all of our choices. If you want to pray that with me, bow your heads, and we'll pray together. Dear Lord, thank you once again for being so clear and direct in Proverbs with us. Thank you for giving us this life advice, this life direction. Thank you for promising to bless us if we follow you. God, you know, you've been watching for thousands of years. It's hard to follow you sometimes. So, Lord, we confess that, and we ask for your help. Lord, not only instruct us, but help us to follow you with faith. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thanks so much for being here for our service. Each week, we've been highlighting a ministry that your generosity has been supporting. This week, we're highlighting some of the organizations that our missions dollars support. And specifically, today we're highlighting Traded Treasures. Traded Treasures is the local food pantry and thrift store here in town, here in Ripon. Traded Treasures is an amazing organization that feeds hundreds of families. It provides Christmas gifts for kids around the area and provides school lunches for kids that are part of the summer school program. These are just a few ways Traded Treasures has been able to support and impact our community. If you want to be a part of that generosity and part of our mission organizations, you can do so by giving here at RCC. There's a few ways you can do that. The first is if you came prepared to give, you can put your offering in the basket as the hosts come down and pass the baskets down the rows. But then also, you can give online with your phone. Go to rccsunday.com and connect to the RESD public Wi-Fi, but follow the steps that it takes you to do our online giving. The band will now come out and close the service with a few more songs. Thanks a lot for being here today.